Elfz Show, part of the Elfz Network. We are a bunch of wild and crazy Cleveland Browns fans, bringing you all the latest in Browns news. Tune in now. Hey, it's a wild and crazy Thursday night. We're in the middle of May. It's May 16th, and we are your Fanatical Elfz. Thank you for being here, part of Fans First Sports Network. And I'm John. There's Steve. There's Jarrell. And up there on the top is Sam, the man, Britton, all the way down there in Texas. He's the Maverick tonight.
Lots of different states and countries come through me.
Folks, thanks for being here. Thanks for following us. Thanks, download us on Apple, on Spotify. You're watching us maybe on YouTube, on Facebook right now, on the X. We really appreciate everybody tuning in. The Browns released their schedule yesterday. Steve and I discussed it a little bit on our show. And now we got Jarrell and Sam in-house, and we want to get their takes, everybody's takes, on after having, a day to kind of look at it a little bit and dissect it. I've also had a chance to look at a couple of the other schedules around the league, some of the AFC North opponents. Very interesting. Yes. So how's everybody doing, by the way? Sam, how you doing out down there in Texas today?
Good. It's rained, I think, 12 out of the 14 days in the past 2 weeks. Wow. I think there's been 2 days without sun, or with sun, I mean. Kind of sucks. But, yeah, we're just preparing to die this summer.
You're talking about the 100-degree days that you get there in Dallas, right?
Yeah, we get a lot. More like 110 degrees. That's more common.
It is. It's warming up, right? Man, it's sizzling.
Yeah, it's like 86 now. It's starting to get close.
Jarrell, how you do? How are you, Jarrell?
Fantastic down here in Tennessee. Dodging the cicadas when I go outside. But,
Steve was talking about that last night, Jarrell.
Yeah, they're not as bad as maybe 20 years ago, so I'm really tolerable this year. But
okay,
they're out there though.
Are you? Yeah, Steve?
I think those 50-degree nights kind of slowed them down a little bit. Mm-hmm. I'm here in North Carolina, and there's not one cicada.
There's not a single one down here.
But when we left, we pulled out yesterday, man, they were loud. It's just the weirdest noise you'll ever hear. It really is.
Well, they come. They're not every year, right?
Well, yeah, you have cicadas every year.
Oh,
but
okay.
Then you have broods. You have like a 7-year. You have in Nashville right now is a 13-year.
Okay.
And then you'll have a 17-year in about 4 years.
Okay.
And they're just loud and annoying. Loud and annoying. And then they die. And then they're all over the place. I got to blow up my front porch every morning of dead cicadas.
Oh, man. Well,
we had a cicada fall from our umbrella yesterday, or not yesterday, last year. It just fell off the umbrella.
Ooh.
Yeah,
the weirdest
he's
sound.
Already made it.
Well, guys, it's good to see everybody here, and we're talking about the Browns schedule. Sam, let's start with you. I know Steve and I talked last night, but give us your initial takes on what you think about this year's schedule and your overall assessment. We'll talk maybe about records, and I know Steve doesn't ever like to disclose what he thinks, but I do want to hear from Sam first here.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting schedule. By the way, it's going to be 93 on Tuesday. Yeah, pain. But yeah, the schedule is interesting. I think this is definitely because we had 6 games with the AFC North already just slotted. Right. I don't think the Bengals. I think Joe Burrow is kind of shaky right now. I don't know how he's going to do and if he's going to survive for more than 6 to 8 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Lamar Jackson, you never know, he might break his knee in half randomly. And then the Steelers, they might be good, they might be bad. There's no real telling. So that's 6 games. I think we could probably go 4-2 with that. And then there are some decent teams, but I don't think the Browns are in any place where we are worried about our schedule. Because we have the Eagles and we have some teams like the Chiefs and stuff, but I don't think it's going to be a terrible year. I think we can still expect 12 wins or close to that at least.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to ask you about some of those predictions. I want to go through some of the specifics that I've seen other people talk about. But Jarrell, what do you think? What are your initial thoughts?
I like the schedule. I like it. I'm a big Tom Brady fan, and so when the Patriots would get their schedule every year, it's like you looked at it and they had all of the heavy hitters. So when I saw this schedule come out, it's like the Browns got all the heavy hitters. You got your AFC North opponents, but you got the Chiefs, you got the Dolphins, you got the Chargers, you got a lot of the teams, even some of the teams on the NFC. You kind of get to feel everybody's punch, and I think that'll pay dividends once you get to the playoffs, because don't they have like the hardest schedule win percentage last year? So you're going to be tested. So as long as they can stay healthy, I think it's fantastic. And then the way that the order was too, don't they get like 3 weeks at home and go into the bye? That's fine. A late bye too, not that early mess. So.
Well, that's what Steven, you and I were talking about that last night. The first 4 games last year was that whole, the first 4 were going to be really big, and then you had the early bye in week 5, and we were all wondering, can they go 4-0? Would they need to go 3-1? Was Stefanski safe with his job? We were going to have San Francisco coming back in week 6.
Yeah.
So this year we have that. We're 10. Which team in the league was it? Cincinnati gets the week 5.
Cincinnati gets the week 5. Steelers get week 9. Baltimore gets week 11. So, well, no, maybe it's a little later. I think
it's 13. I want to say it's 13.
You're right. Yeah, I think you're right. I think it is 13. So, last year, 3 out of the first 4 games were AFC North. Now all the schedules are kind of back heavy with divisional opponents.
Yep.
So, and especially with the Browns, back heavy with primetime games.
Yes.
Which I think is nice. I kind of like that. 4 teams have the 3 road, 3 home stretches in the NFL this year. So it wasn't only the Browns. At least they're 3 road games. I mean, like you and I talked about, at Raiders, at Commanders. So you're getting Gardner Minshew and some
Philly, right?
And some rookie quarterback for the Washington. Then you come back before the bye, you get Bengals, Ravens, Chargers. So that's a nice little stretch. It's good to have those tough teams as a 3-game homestand. The end of it, well, like I said last night, those last games will define the team. The 4 primetime games, and you got to mix in the Chiefs and the Ravens. So that's those last 6 weeks is going to be a real definition. But at least you get like a little mini bye in there. So with the primetime games,
the Paul Brown, our friend across the pond, mentioned what you've mentioned just now as far as for Browns fans, and that latter part of the season is highlighted by primetime games. And with that in mind, obviously the NFL must have a good vibe like we do as fans that the Browns are going to be successful, because they're going to be in a lot of these games at the end of the season against the Chiefs, the Dolphins, and teams like that. And, it's going to keep Browns fans entertained. Last year it was Joe Flacco that came to the rescue. Well, see what happens this year. Can James Winston do that this year? Maybe, if hoping Deshaun doesn't get injured. That's my biggest thing every year, and that's what I said earlier. But so I wanted to ask you. So
but he got injured last year, and they won 11 games.
Well,
I'm sorry. I am so tired of hearing the Cleveland media and the national media go, well, Deshaun Watson, he could get hurt. Well, he got hurt last year and they won 11 games.
Let me ask you,
can we not talk about that anymore?
Well, let's go back through. I just want to start. Let's start at the beginning with this Cowboys game. I just give you an example. This is one example, but we can dissect it however you want. There's a kid that works for the Cleveland.com or Hayden Grove. Some of you guys might follow him, young guy. And he came out with his predictions. And I just started looking at this and I'm going, what the? I mean, not that I don't necessarily disagree with the record potentially, but how he's dissected this is just, I think is weird. And I wanted to kind of go through this. So he says in week 1, the Browns are going to lose to the Cowboys at home. He's predicting a loss. Okay. Now, let me just tell you this. He ends up giving the Browns a 13-4 record. Like, okay. Some of us after, we're doing early predictions. Okay. I'm not going to say that's not going to happen, but he starts the season off with a loss. Then he has us winning 4 games in a row at the Jaguars, home against the Giants, at the Raiders, and then at the Commanders. I can't see in the early stretch of the season the Browns. Well, one, I can't see them losing to the Cowboys. I don't, if they do, it's Tom Brady's fault. I know, Jarrell, you're a big Tom Brady fan, but then, okay. So just that first part of that first quarter of the schedule, I guess, what do you got? What are your assessments right there? I'm thinking, for me, I like the Cowboys game as a win. I think we lose to the Jaguars just because we're going down to Florida and Trevor Lawrence will be ready to go. We probably beat the Giants at home. And then we go out to the Raiders. I think we lose because we just don't do well out on the West Coast. So we're 2-2 there. I think we beat the Commanders. And so we're 3-2 going to the Philadelphia Eagles. And so we'll get to that here in a minute. But what do you think about that first, 4 games against the Cowboys? What do you think our record will be after that first stretch?
6 games.
Well, 6. Yeah, I threw out. Yeah. I didn't include let's see, 1, 2. I included 5. It's the Cowboys, the Jaguars, the Giants, Raiders, and the Commanders. Is that 5? Commanders.
Yeah, you got it.
Where do you think we are after those first 5 games? Jarrell, where do you think we land there? If you look at that.
I got to put my spectacles on. So I looked at this before the call. They have 8 games against teams that were ranked in the top 10. Obviously, Baltimore is a couple of those. Now, they had the Cowboys ranked 5th last year. Defense, and I think they played a lot of tomato cans. So I don't really know if the Cowgirls. It depends on who shows up. I think Dak Prescott is good for a lot of garbage time stats. Where if they're down 2 or 3 touchdowns, he'll probably come back in the game. So I would say that's a dangerous game where if the Browns start hot and they don't play a complete game, they could lose the game. But I think if the defense plays up to snuff, they should be okay with the Cowboys. They lost a couple of pieces. They really didn't do anything in the offseason. I think they would be okay. The Jaguars, and Steve, you might agree with this, being in the AFC South, they're kind of inconsistent too. It depends on what team shows up. Mm-hmm. So really, I think the Raiders? The Raiders is probably the only game that I would say I'd be a little concerned with. Mm-hmm. But I see them going 4-1 during that stretch, whatever combination you want to throw in there.
Okay, 4-1.
Yeah,
okay,
I can see that. I can see.
What do you think? You agree with Jarrell's assessment?
First of all, under Stefanski, the Browns are 24-10 at home.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
won their last 2.
Only heard that here in the Fanatical Elfz, thanks to Steve Gill. There you go, buddy.
Yeah, well, I'm a stat geek. I'm like
10.
I'm like Norm on Cheers. Things get stuck in my head. Yeah,
boy, steady and they've never had 24-10 at home. Wow, that's pretty.
And
good.
They've never had a home losing record since Stefanski was hired.
Okay,
so I think they're going to be fired up defensively. I don't think Dallas is, like Jarrell said, Dallas really has not done anything.
Yeah.
Anything at all so far this season. I just can't see. I look back at that 2020 game when they had a halfway decent offensive line and Myles Garrett wrecked it. constantly. I mean, I think he had 2 strip sacks, and he just went crazy in the first quarter. If the Browns had defense, that game wouldn't have been that close. So I agree with Jarrell on the Raider game, like you did. Those West time zone games tend to give the Browns historically problems, as last year when they lost all 3 at Seattle, at Denver, and at Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So I can see where that game might be a problem, but again, they have Gardner Minshew as their quarterback.
All right, let's Sam, what do you think right now with that first 5 games?
I know it sounds weird, but I think 3-2. I think the Cowboys love beating teams even though they probably shouldn't, and they love beating teams and then not doing anything with it. I think because the Cowboys are great at just winning games in the regular season. That's just they're so good at it, and they beat good teams in the regular season. They have not done anything. I think it will be a close game. I think it could go either way, honestly. I think the Cowboys can win. I think the Cowboys can lose. They have not done a single thing in free agency. I mean, I've done more in my free agency, and I'm not even an NFL associate. So, but like, I think the Jaguars, are also going to give the Browns some trouble. But I think 3-2 or 4-1 is pretty realistic for me.
Okay, so let me ask you this, Sam. You're up down there in Dallas. Do you watch the news or the sports or follow it on?
I listen to the radio pretty often.
And how are they with this schedule release? How are they?
They still have one of the hosts has them going 12-5, another 9-8. So I think it's kind of
that's a
mid. Like I think a lot of them have like the average is like 11 to 10 wins.
Do they have it being the Brownies? Do they have most of them having?
They have. I think I must have. They haven't like laid out who their wins and losses for each game, but like I think they're definitely going to. But I think they've put it around 11, but they haven't listed a like win loss, and like listed every single game.
Okay, yeah. I just it's
right.
Dallas is just okay. Let's jump to the other couple games here because they still have an away game then against the Eagles, and then they come back and they play the Bengals, the Ravens, and the Chargers at home. So we get into this stretch right before the bye. These next 4 games,
Double
the
Harbaugh.
Eagles, at this point, so the Hayden Grove has them losing to the Cowboys, winning the next 4 games against the Jaguars, the Giants, the Raiders, and the Commanders. And then he has them losing to the Eagles. And then winning the next. He actually has them winning the next 3 games before the bye. So he has them beating the Bengals, the Ravens, and the Chargers. And I'm like, no way in God's green earth. And I love my Brownies, but I'm sorry, there's just no way. I can't see even that their home games. I mean, even though Stefanski has a 24-10 record at home, there's just
8-1 last year at home.
I just can't see them winning a stretch like that. You're talking the Bengals, the Ravens.
Okay. If Joe Burrow is still upright and his hand isn't bothering him, he's like what 1-5 versus the Browns. So I'm not worried. About
okay.
The Bengals.
All right.
Okay. He's never beaten them in Cleveland.
Okay.
Never.
Okay.
So Ravens, we'll have to see what happens, how their early schedule comes out. And Chargers, brand new head coach, brand new system, brand new coaching staff. They'll have a little time to go up. That's why I don't do win-losses, because I want to see who these teams play before they come and play the Browns.
Yeah.
That could have a lot of factor into it, when their game is scheduled, who they're playing. Like if the Chargers are playing like an afternoon game the Sunday before, that's a short week for them. And then they got to fly all the way into Cleveland. West Coast teams usually don't do that well.
Yeah.
And they got Justin Herbert, who can look like a moron for an entire quarter. He's good for that. Never won a playoff, yet he's a top 10 quarterback.
Jarrell, where are you thinking on that stretch of the next 4 games? Do you see them having any chance against the Eagles at Philly?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we kind of saw how the Eagles faltered towards the end, and that's the funny thing about football is that it really does come into play. It depends on when you play people, where in the season, what are the injuries, how are you clicking, are you coming out flat? So, every season is different, but I'm looking at the schedule and I'm thinking your main pieces are going to be healthy. You got Watson running a system that he's more familiar with, and he can impart that on his receivers where running a lot of those choice and option routes. Now, if the defense does call the right play and the receiver sees the same thing that the quarterback sees, you can make that on the fly adjustment.
Okay.
So that's one thing that has me excited about the schedule because you got the heavy hitters, you got in teams, but if they're clicking, I really do believe there's not really any team on the schedule that if they're clicking, they're going to have problems with, especially if the defense shows up. That's including the Chiefs. So I think that middle section, I think that's when it's starting to heat up because if you can gain some momentum, where maybe you go into that with maybe only 2 or 3 losses going into the bye, you're in a great situation where you got, and you can't let your foot off the gas either. So I think it ramps up perfectly to where when you get to the Chiefs, you should already be like, we're making the playoffs. Now it's correcting mistakes. Now it's fine tuning different things rather than last year kind of limping into the playoffs and you're trying to come up with new game plans to see if that's going to work. So that's where my mind is when I think about it.
Okay. Yeah. Sam, what do you think about that next stretch of games? You like their chances against all of them?
Yeah, it looks interesting because like the Eagles fell apart. Who knows how they're gonna play? They might be 11-6 or they might be 6-11. Who knows? The Bengals, again, it mostly matters on if Joe Burrow hasn't died yet, or if his hand is still okay. Same with Baltimore. It mostly matters if Lamar is still healthy or not. And then the Chargers are weird because they have the team to be good. They have a new head coach, but they just haven't been good. Like they're still a decent regular season team. They just haven't been able to do anything in the playoffs. So that's more of a 50-50. And then like the Saints and Steelers, again, Saints are Steelers are again just kind of meh. So I think we could definitely win, only lose another game, maybe lose 2, depending on how the teams are doing.
Okay. They go into their bye, and see, this is where so Hayden Grove has them winning that stretch of the Bengals, the Ravens, and the Chargers before the bye. Then he has us coming off the bye, where we then go play the Saints. We come home to the Steelers. We go to Denver. We go to Pittsburgh. So we play Pittsburgh twice in this stretch after the bye, and he has us winning all 4 of those games.
Wow.
So he has us winning those 4 games plus the 3 before the bye. So he has the Browns on a 7-game win streak, which I just...
Holy moly, Andy.
No, I think the Ravens are going to hitch that.
I might get drunk for a week if that happens.
That's like... I'm sorry. He's saying that we're going to beat the Steelers twice.
I got to check a pulse if that happens.
Well, it's not.
Well, what do you think?
Impossible. It's not impossible because again, when I think about the Steelers, they're historically they have been a nemesis. But if the Browns are supposed to do, because let's be real, when the team was stolen in the dark of night, the whole roots of the organization, it's kind of like I live in Nashville, right? The Titans and Jeff Fisher, a whole organization came here, so everything's already set in stone. The Browns basically, when they got them back in '99 or 2000, you had to redo all of that, and they're getting to that point where we've already talked about the foundation.
Yes,
but getting to that point where now there shouldn't be an excuse. It shouldn't be, oh, it's the Steelers and that. No, the mentality should be they ruined Chubb's season. I got to say, you might need to get the bleeps out, but we're going to beat that ass. This should be the beat that ass year. I don't know when the last time is that they swept them, but that should be the point where now you're turning the corner. It don't Steelers, Bengals, whoever. It don't matter because they have the roster to do it. So that's why when I see Steelers in that kind of stretch, that shouldn't strike fear in anybody that's a Cleveland fan, especially the way that the Steelers kind of are on a decline right now. So this is be getting them.
No, I like that. Sam,
yeah,
what do you
think
about that next? Yeah, Steve, Sam.
I don't think 7-0 is very plausible. I think just the way the NFL works and the way it's built and injuries and exhaustion, that's a big word, but I don't think 7-0 is even just in any like a perfect world where there isn't injuries, where there isn't like on paper, that's still really hard to do in the NFL. There's so many little variables, so many little things, but I think 6-1 is probably more realistic. 5-2, you could also throw that in there depending on what happens, but I think 7-0 is unrealistic, but I think 6-1 is definitely a plausible possibility.
Okay.
All right.
Steve, anything to add to that?
I think it was Bernie Kosar who beat the Steelers twice the last time in one season.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it could have been. I don't know. Right off the top of my head. Again, looking at the way our schedule falls and knowing, we get 2 of the AFC North teams out of the way week 7 and 8. I believe the Steelers and the Ravens and the Bengals are more backloaded than we are. I know the Steelers, out of their last 8 games, they play all the AFC North, the Eagles, and the Chiefs on Christmas.
Yeah.
So, their schedule is really backloaded. So that could factor into those 2 Steeler games. I mean, they could just be plain beat up by that time.
Mm-hmm.
So a 7-game wins. I find that hard to believe, but I would love it.
Right. I saw that. I'd love it. Yeah.
I'd be on cloud 9. You could have to scrape me off the ceiling if that happens. I'd lose my voice probably about 3rd or 4th game, and I'd have to have my wife yell for me. But that would be great. But like Samuel says, this is the NFL. Anything can happen.
Right.
We really don't know how they roll into those games injury-wise. Last year, defense ran out of steam and they were doing smoke and mirrors on offense, but they still won.
The last stretch of games, they've got the Chiefs, the Bengals, the Dolphins, and the Ravens. So several of those games, well, even prior to that, are in prime time.
2
the Bengals and the Dolphins game.
Sunday Night Football.
Can't
remember the last time they were on Sunday Night Football.
Just the fact that they've put the NFL put them on the schedule that late in the season on a Sunday night, I just think it's very intriguing. Now, there's this flex scheduling and everything, and so that's probably something we want to pay attention to. But still, the NFL must know something. Those folks in Vegas must have some pretty good odds that the Browns are going to do some good things.
Well, on wins is still 8.5 for the Browns.
Hayden has us splitting those. He's got us losing to the Chiefs, beating the Bengals, beating the Dolphins, and losing to the Ravens. So he actually has us losing to the Chiefs and the Ravens at the end of the season. So there you get your 4-2 record against the AFC North. He has us losing the last 2 against the Bengals and the Ravens, which, I think, Sam, you said 3 or 4-2 would be doable.
That would win the division. Yeah. 4-2 would win the AFC North.
But I would just think that at the end of that, like if we lose the last 2 games to the division opponents, that's he has us winning the first 4, but I don't know. It just
he had Chiefs winning Dolphins, losing Rams. So he just has us losing the game to the Ravens, probably because the Browns had already won the AFC North and their rest years.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Could be. Yeah. Again, great. Scrape me off the ceiling.
What do you think of that last stretch, Sam or Jarrell? What do you think? What are you thinking?
I'm just
Jarrell,
looking at it.
what do you think, Jarrell?
Well, I mean, obviously the Chiefs is that's the standout game to me because in my mind you should be already deep in the playoff, like right, as far as whatever the math is, like you're going to the playoffs, and that game should really be a litmus test or a barometer to see, okay, if we play them, what's the whether they start fast or you start fast. It's kind of like when the Giants played, and I hate to bring up the Patriots, but when the Patriots went 16-0, I really do believe that them playing the Giants that last game of the regular season, if they either rested their starters or played anybody else in the Super Bowl, they probably would have went 19-0. But I think because the Giants played them pretty much to the last drive, they felt their punch. It was like, oh, we can play with them. They're not. So when the Super Bowl happened, they were playing with confidence.
I forgot about that. So they played them in the last game of the regular season, you're saying?
Go 16-0, yeah.
Okay.
Tom Brady threw that pass to Moss to seal it or whatever. That's
okay.
Breaking pass. So playing the Chiefs late in the season, in my mind, is what the Browns should be thinking, that you probably gonna, unless you get home field advantage throughout, you probably have to meet them at some point.
You know who else is going to be in Cleveland that day?
I don't.
Taylor Swift.
Oh yeah.
I was reading that she's already made plans that her next concert season will be. She's only going to miss 3 football games this season, and Cleveland's not one of them. So I imagine since the Kelsey brothers are from Cleveland, and
they both will be there, as Jason Kelt is working for ESPN. So
man, it'll be one big family affair. I'll be in attendance, but I'm sure all of you watching on TV will be sick and tired of watching them pan to see Taylor Swift once again.
14
By the way, I'm not going to change
time.
subjects here, but
you are.
I am going to, because I'm so mad. I have to mention. Well, let's pause for a break. The commercial break. We're going to finish up. We're going to talk. Sam, I want to get to you before the break. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, I said there was a ding, and I said, was there an elevator?
Oh, I think was that ding on my end, or was
I was somewhere. I wasn't really. I don't think it's very easy to tell.
Let's pause for a quick commercial break. This is the Fanatical Elfz Show. We'll be right back. Good. We're back. We're the Fanatical Elfz. We're talking the Browns schedule. And we want to finish up on discussing that. Also, I know, Steve, you wanted to mention a little bit about the preseason, which I thought was interesting too, when that was released last night for the Brownies. Before we get to that, I was just going to mention, and I don't want to get deep into this, but it caught my attention. I don't know why it took me all week to figure this out, but the youngster, and very, he had quite a lot of opinions this weekend at Benedictine College in Kansas, which I've actually visited with my daughter, who was recruited to play basketball there. She was in high school, small Catholic college. I don't want to get into the whole depth of everything, but I don't know if anybody saw it. I actually listened to his whole speech because it's being criticized quite a bit across the country. I don't know if any of you caught that this week, or the news behind that. I'm just interested if you saw that story.
Yes, I did. And also what Aaron Rodgers said too.
Well, I try to ignore Aaron Rodgers.
CTE is very dangerous, I tell you. These guys are getting hit too much.
Well, I have friends that live in Kansas. I lived there in Kansas for 26 years, and just very interesting comments. I know he was at a commencement, and it's a private school, and it's Catholic private school, and I'm Catholic and grew up Catholic, and but it was very interesting, especially the part at the end, at about the 13-minute mark of his speech. He starts talking about the graduates, the female graduates, which was interesting, his take, but I'll let you all read that on your own. I was just from a football perspective, and what's going to happen with the Chiefs. I saw that the NFL came out with some sort of statement earlier today or yesterday, kind of saying they don't agree with what he said. I mean, obviously it was a private commencement, but it's blasted all over the world now. And so it's just interesting. I've been talking to my friends in Kansas, and so it's just a lot of opinions. And I have I'll just say this, there are a lot of Chiefs fans like that I know that are really having a hard time after some of the things that were said. I just didn't know if anybody had followed that story very much.
I'll just make this comment on it. A schedule released by the Chargers. They did it Sims characters, and they put them in a kitchen. That's enough said.
Yeah.
Lovely show, by the way, Chargers.
Yeah. I don't know, Jarrell, did you catch the story behind that, or did you see the
I'm guessing you're talking about the homemaker's comment.
Yeah, there was a lot of comments he made, but yes, yes.
I only saw the headline. I didn't click on it.
Well, I watched the speech in its entirety today, and just because I was curious, like many of us, and I've actually been on that campus and visited with people, and it's a very nice place, and it's I go to mass. I've done that for years, and but he took it upon himself as a young man to make some comments and he actually even quoted Taylor Swift, which just kind of added interest to it, because he talked about the female graduates very specifically, and yet then he makes a comment about Taylor Swift, who's a mega $1 million, star.
He's a billionaire
who in the whole, so his whole sentiment, I'll let you watch, and I don't really want to get into it, but it was like polar opposites of, he's sharing one part, or he's describing what he believes, and yet he's taking quotes from his friend who plays football, Kelsey, and the girlfriend. And he's a young man who's got a lot of things that he needs to work on, is all from an older perspective. It's just, sometimes he talked to the crowd about staying in their lane. He kept talking about people should just stay in their lane. And I'm like, well, that's a pretty minimal view of the world. And I just have a hard time when people use that kind of phrasing about people staying in their lane. It's like, when LeBron would get remember how people would comment about other players and talk about LeBron or, staying in their lane, playing basketball. I'm like, what? That's just dumb. So anyway, I digress.
You digressed. Let's hear what Samuel has to say about the last games of the season.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it's 2-2 is probably realistic.
Okay.
For if we're talking the Chiefs, Bengals, Dolphins, and Ravens, you could beat I think the Bengals is probably a win. I think the Dolphins is 50-50 because the Dolphins are a good team. It just matters really on if they can click properly, because sometimes these teams that are really built on offense and don't have the best defense sometimes just don't work very well. But I think it could be we lose to the Chiefs, lose to the Ravens, beat the Bengals and the Dolphins, or we lose to the Ravens, lose to the Chiefs, or I think I already said that, or lose to the Chiefs, lose to the Dolphins, beat the Bengals and Ravens. I think the Chiefs is a guaranteed loss just because they're the Chiefs, and at this point, I don't think you can beat the Chiefs in the playoffs or in the end of the regular season. They're just insane. But I think 2-2 is pretty realistic for the final 4 games.
Yeah.
Right.
I like, so so overall, when you guys look at this, I mean, I know Steve, you don't want to give a record, but I'm just going to throw out something like, again, 11-6 or 12-5. I think but the combination of games, I don't agree with Hayden Grove, who we were talking about earlier. Sam, are you still with that 11, 12, 13 game win?
I think 12 to 13 in a division win is probably pretty realistic.
Okay, Jarrell?
Whatever it takes for them to win the AFC North, that's what I got them going.
Do you think they have a legit shot this year, Jarrell?
Absolutely. The Steelers are on the decline. The Bengals I mean, again, Burrow's health, and I know people will say Watson's health, but I'm saying the Browns have a better defense. I think they have a more complete team. So I think winning the division, in my mind, that whatever it takes to win that. So if it's 10 games, it's 11 games, and they're winning the division. That's
okay. Okay. Preseason came out. Steve, you wanted to make some comments on that. I'll just let you start.
Yeah, it's interesting that their first two games are at afternoon games. On the 10th
Saturdays,
and the 17th. Right? Yeah, and that last one, August 24th, 9 o'clock Central Time for the three of us, and 10 o'clock for you, John, out in Seattle. I have heard that Kevin Stefanski did not like how they played on the West Coast last year. So he kind of lobbied for this game to be a road game, West Coast. I think he wants to show his players that what happened last year is not acceptable and get them into the mode where they can go out on the West Coast, even though it's a practice game.
Yeah.
And win. Because we know the Vikings game, they're going to scrimmage. Game 2 is they're going to scrimmage. So Stefanski's not going to have his starters in.
Yeah.
They will sprint like he does every year. Whenever they scrimmage another team, he doesn't play the starters in the preseason. Last year, they ended in Kansas City, and he started the starters for a quarter in Kansas City. So you will see Watson, you'll see Amari Cooper, maybe you won't see Myles Garrett, or maybe not even Denzel Ward, but he's going to play most of his starters in that game. And I think what he's trying to instill them is the confidence that they can go out on the West Coast and win. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Also, one other thing about the schedule: if Nick Chubb is on the PUP list, that means 4 weeks. He can't play for 4 weeks.
Yeah,
and if they're careful, that would put him back week 6 at Eagles.
At the Eagles.
So think about that. Yes. Or they may just save him for that 3-game homestand, starting with the Bengals. I think that's more likely. If he's put on the PUP, everybody says he's going to be. Why have him travel to the Eagles? You can put him on that 3-game homestand, Bengals, Ravens, Chargers.
1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. So you're saying, wait, 4 weeks? Is it 4 weeks? Because
4 weeks for the PUP, 6 weeks for the IR. And you don't want him being on IR.
So if he's on 4 weeks, though, that would give him 1, 2, 3, that he could come back.
I don't think he'll come back week 5. They're going to handle him with kit gloves. Why play him on the road against the Eagles? Save him for that home strand. That's 7, 8, 9. And then he gets the bye week to rest up.
Well, okay, there's a home game against the Commanders in week 5, though. You don't think he'd
No. It depends on how he's got to practice. So they're not going to throw him right out there coming off the PUP. I mean, you got to wait a couple of weeks.
I'm just, yes, Jarrell.
Is there a situation where, let's just say, I don't know, in some perfect world, they go 8-0, 7-1, something crazy, and if they're doing better, do you think that buys them more time, or do you think they bring back Chubb for that home?
That's a great point. If they come out hot, Nick Chubb, they can take bringing him back. That's a great point.
And then you have him rested up and ready to go, and he could be a real.
But then again, Chubb is playing for another contract next year. So if he really feels he's ready and they're holding him out, that might put him in a bad mood. And we want Nick Chubb happy.
See, I just think, I don't know. I agree with your assessment. It's the Browns crazy fan of me that just thinks that Nick Chubb's going to want to get going like right away. Like maybe
I'm sure he is. I mean, in a perfect world, he'll be ready for the Cowboys.
He plays with the Cleveland Cavaliers. He'd never play again because the Cavaliers have a history of having their players get injured and they don't play them for 2 months like Dean Wade. But, this mysterious knee injury with him. So we all agree that the Brownies are going to do, good things this year.
Got to win the division. That's it.
Yeah.
Win the division.
Yeah.
Got to get that first game at home. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah. Well, final takes tonight, folks. Jarrell, you got any final thoughts? Anything you want to share with the fans out there? Your gear tonight, boy. I like your. What do you got? Your hoodie. This.
Yeah, this
From
is
last week.
46.
I love that sweatshirt, man.
You got some good ones, man. I'm telling you. Is that one for sale?
This one will be probably by preseason. I'm still trying to work out the design kinks, but
okay. Dogfoodstore.com.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. DAWG. Only way to spell it.
Yeah.
But no, I like what Steve said about Stefanski knowing what happened on the West Coast and using the preseason to try to instill that into them. I think that's great coaching. And I know people have kind of been hard on Stefanski, but I really think he's been earning his salt. He's done it a variety of ways. Yeah. I think now he has to do it with a healthy quarterback, a healthy running back, and a somewhat healthy team, and see what he can do. So
I like that.
See that.
Yeah. And the ladies love Kevin Stefanski because he's really
good-looking man.
Good-looking guy.
I can say that. I'm very secure in my masculinity. He's a damn good-looking guy.
Sam, what do you think? The final takes tonight.
Yeah, I think the season's going to be a pretty fun one as long as no one breaks their leg in half again. Hopefully that doesn't happen. Hopefully Deshaun Watson stays healthy. Hopefully that's the one concern I have. It's not even a big concern because there's only 2 players that I'm really worried about. But the problem is they're big players, quarterback and running back. I think that's the one place I'm a little worried about, but this defense looks great. I think this offense, I mean, because Deshaun Watson isn't bad. He's a good quarterback. He just hasn't figured it out. And I think Deshaun Watson and all these receivers are going to, especially with this defense behind him now, I think it's definitely going to be a really, really fun season. Or we could go 8-9 and everyone gets hurt. But hopefully that doesn't happen.
Sam, like when you said that, I'm thinking about Jerry Jeudy, man. I'm excited to see what this kid who was used in Denver and what he can do now. He's in a new city, a new team. He had some moments
better
in
quarterback
Denver.
Situation.
Yeah, I just think it's going to be interesting. You know, you've got a veteran wide receiver like Amari Cooper. You've got Elijah Moore, who kind of came into his own last year. You got David Njoku, who, man, I'm telling you, right now, I'm just telling you, with this Dallas game, like he's going to have, there's this anger that's going to be so strong by this team going to play against Parsons and Loudmouth and all this crap. I just think the Browns are going to roll them. I know I could go either way, but man, the fact that David Njoku is this more maturing in front of our eyes, has been with the team since 2017. Basically has said that he's grown up, and I just excited about those things. I think all of that is going to happen. So guys, thanks for being here tonight. Jarrell, you got any shows coming up?
Yeah, we're probably going to talk a little bit about the schedule, but I want to look more into Deshaun Watson and this new offense that they're going to be bringing in. I think the option and choice routes is exactly what's called for. So
I like it. Yeah. When will that be dropping, Jarrell? You think the next couple days?
Yeah, I'll try to get it out by this weekend.
Sweet. Steve?
Sunday. I'll try to get mine out Sunday. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and say Ken Dorsey is going to be your play caller in 2020. That's why I think Deshaun Watson's going to have a good year.
Yeah. Yeah. Samuel, final anything going on with your show with the Browns breakdowns? You got one coming up?
Yeah, I should have one on Saturday.
Sweet.
There you go. Your weekend is covered. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
I love it. I love it. I will be here. I'm actually going to sleep in. My wife and I said we don't have to go anywhere this weekend. All week we've had full weekends with graduations and everything else. So, thank you so much for being here, guys. Go Browns. Go Fanatical Elfz. Follow us. Drop us, man. Just get us on Apple. Get us on Spotify. I'm telling you, get your phone out every morning. turn on the phone. There it is. Another show from the Fanatical Elfz. It's dropped. It's there. You don't miss a beat. Lou's got his show coming on right now. You'll have the audio of that in the morning, so you can listen to Lou for 10 minutes. Rod Bloom is on vacation. Good for Rod. He'll be doing his Browns Blitz coming back next week again. So thanks, everybody. Have a great night. Go Browns.
Go Browns.
Go Browns.